The California Court of Opinion is now in session. Now presiding, Honorable Judge Dylan Goday.
Thank you, Bailiff Collin. The California Court of Opinions is now in session. Welcome to our new show here on CUTV called Judgement Calls. I'm your host, as judge, Dylan Goday, and joined alongside me is the prosecution, which is represented today by Stephen Ruffing, and the defense, which is represented today by Danny Beck. And to explain Judgement Calls will be a two-segment series here on CUTV that will go over cases that represent good calls or bad calls, and I will be the deciding factor if the call in football, basketball, or other sports, it would be the right call, the good call, or a bad call. And next, in the second segment of the show, will be a different segment each time. This time it'll be the new catch rule in the NFL, and you guys can send us your different thing you would like a final judgment call on, either the new catch rule or a thing in entertainment, anything like that. We could decide here as a prosecution and defense and me as the judge. But first, let the prosecution and defense introduce themselves. Stephen Ruffing, you're representing the prosecution today. Would you like to give us a quick background of your expertise?
Stephen Ruffing, Esquire. I am a professional in judging calls, if you will, and I have been at this for 21 years, since birth. So I am fully prepared to take on Danny Beck in this kind of situation. This is my atmosphere, and I hope that you can understand and see what I have to say.
Thank you, prosecution. Now on to our defense, to my left. The defense is represented today by Daniel Beck. Danny, would you like to give yourself an introduction?
Yes, my name is Daniel Beck. I've been at this defense side for 20 years, making the right calls for 20 years. I have a plethora of information, a plethora of knowledge, and I'm prepared to bring that to this case here today, Dylan.
Well, let's jump right into it. Now to our first case of the day. This is a foul under 10 seconds called in the West Virginia girls AAA state championship game between Buchanan Upshur and Parkersburg. Let's take a look at this call now. With around 10 seconds left in the game, girl there for Buchanan takes a shot and ties the game up. And Parkersburg coming back the other way, there's a foul called right there. Around 7 seconds left in the game, and this ended up deciding that game as the game-winning free throws were made by Parkersburg. First, let's head to the prosecution to give their stance on this call.
Now, Your Honor, you are from Buchanan Upshur.
I object. I object.
I'm just
That
making my
has nothing-
statement.
that
Your
has
objection is
nothing-
not heard. Your objection is
I'm
not
just going to make this point, and I fully expect that there will be zero bias in this situation because that was the fair call, that was the right call. In under 10 seconds, with that on the line, with that much contact, if you notice, the hips and the body and the buttocks were fully in contact with the player dribbling the ball. Almost a Grayson Allen-esque, right there. A contact, hands go up after the whistle is called. That just shows to me that she is guilty, that she had fouled that other young lady playing basketball with the ball, going like this after the call, to me, fully tells you that she fouled the girl, and she is, in fact, guilty of the foul, and it is the right call.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing. Now on to our defense, Mr. Danny Beck. Daniel, what is your stance on this call?
First off, Your Honor, I would like to say that that call has nothing to do with where you choose to reside.
Objection? It
Second
does
off,
because he is
Your
from
objection
Buchanan.
is not heard.
Second off, I believe that that call was simply wrong. First off, you saw in that play the player running with the other player for Parkersburg. Any other time in that entire game, that call would not be called. That will not be the foul on the floor because of the fact that they were simply bringing the ball in. Yes, I know this situation. You can see right here, a little bit of hand checking. I'm not going to deny that. There was a slight hand check, but lateral movements were made with the runner. No foul should have been called. She never reached in. She never impeded the progress of the player moving forward with the basketball. And if you saw that in the background, the fans were making a travel call, which was not right either. And I know in that situation, that foul should not have been called.
I understand both of your opinions. Would you like to make any rebuttal, Mr. Ruffing?
I would. Now, Danny said it right himself. She reached in. The foul was called. And right there, he said it. There was a little hand reaching in.
I object.
He said it.
I
You
object.
said it.
I object.
Objection
said it.
is not heard, Mr. Beck.
Thank you. He said it himself. There was some reaching in there. Under 10 seconds, you have to do that. We'll see it again. She goes down the court, and where Danny got that traveling, I don't know. But right before that, the hand was in. The hand was in there. And that's all I have to say. Those are my final thoughts on this. Good call.
Mr. Beck, would you like to have a rebuttal to Mr. Ruffing?
Your Honor, first off, I would like to say that I never called that there was a travel.
Yes, you did.
I said in the background, you might see a fan make the travel call, which is not the case.
Which was also irrelevant.
It was not irrelevant. Could have been the other call there on the floor. Second off, Your Honor, I would like to say that I never said that there was a little bit of reaching. I said that there was a hand check, being that the player might have reached in, the other player checked her hand, which means that she slapped her hand away. Also could have been a foul call. Just saying. There was lateral movements made with the runner up the floor. She never stepped in, never a blocking foul called. Should not have been a foul out there on the floor. I rest my case.
Well, as we were heading to end out this case, are there any final thoughts by either the prosecution or the defense?
No, Your Honor.
None.
All right, so it's now my time to make a final ruling on this call. Good call or bad call? And I, as judge, with the power invested in me, declare this call a bad call. And the reasoning for this,
You're from
if we
Buchanan.
take another look at the call, let's take one more final look at this. Free throw has been made to tie the game up. As we can first see, if I was the director of officiating right there, I would have called a travel call in which it wouldn't have mattered. And then secondly, as most officials in basketball know, in the final 10 seconds, clearly the unwritten rule is that no foul should be called. So with the power invested in me, I declare that a bad call, and that is the final ruling here from the California Court of Opinions. Now on to our next case. Case number 2, also from the West Virginia Basketball State Tournament. This one's from the North Marion and Bluefield game. With 0.3 seconds left in the game in the AA quarterfinal matchup, there's this call that the written rule in the book, as we take a look at this call, is that with 0.3 seconds, there's actually 2 angles at this call, so you can decide for yourself here. But the rule is with 0.3 seconds left, you cannot have a catch and shoot. It must be a tip and shoot. So as you can see there, time for a tip drill. Prosecution. Let's take a look at the other view here. Would you decide that that was a tip and the correct call was made?
I do. Now she brings that in. She goes zip, whoop, zip, zoop, boom. The shot was made. Now, my thing is with high school basketball, the time is very, very subjective. At what point did the refs go over and make sure that time was correct? When did they go and look at it? It's very subjective, so she gets that off. Who knows? It could have been 0.5 seconds that she has to shoot. But the clock said 0.3. She got it off right before that buzzard. Nonetheless, she gets it off. Tip drill. 3. Was it a 3? It was, I think. It was long 2. She got it in. That is a good call. They left it at that. Unfortunately, was that the same game?
That was a different game.
It was
this
a different game.
Quarterfinal matchup.
They won that game.
Number 1 versus number 8, I believe. So
That's a good call.
thank you. Now on to our defense. Mr. Beck, what is your stance on this call?
First off, Your Honor, I would like to say that it was not a good call. Obviously, I'm the defense. But the red light went off clearly before the ball left her hand.
Clearly?
Clearly before her
Clearly.
hand. Please check out the replay.
Clearly.
The red light went off. There's a rule in place already. This was already stated from Your Honor, Dylan Godet. I think that that call is not only wrong, it's blatantly wrong, because there's a rule in place already that there was 0.3 seconds left, and that's all you can say about it.
Wow.
There was a rule in place already, and the red light went off.
That
It's
is
no good.
some riveting evidence, Danny. That is riveting evidence.
Mr.
That
Bailiff,
call
can
is
we have
wrong.
order in the court?
I object.
That
What is
call
this?
is wrong
Order.
because
What is
it's
this?
wrong. Riveting
Who is
stuff,
this?
Danny.
Order in my courtroom.
That
Who is
call
this?
is wrong because it's wrong. Riveting stuff.
Thank you, Bailiff. Mr. Ruffing of the prosecution, this is now your time to debate. When I give you your stance, your platform here, now I'm saying you can have your rebuttal to Mr. Beck.
All right, so Danny, you were very out of line there. When you say clearly the red light went off, clearly it didn't, because clearly you couldn't even tell. To say, I'm not going to say it clearly the ball was off before the red light, because it wasn't clear. It also wasn't clear that she got it off after the red light came on. Got it off right there. Right there. I think that's clearly that she got the shot off before right there. Got it. Those are my final words. And really, Danny, you should be a little more professional in this courtroom. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing. Now to the defense here with Mr. Beck. Mr. Beck, what is your rebuttal and final thoughts here as we kind of quickly go through the second case?
Yes, Your Honor. If she made the shot and if it in fact was good, that was the winning shot, whatever, since it was unclear. If you were saying it was unclear, they should have looked at video evidence to make sure that the ball left her hand before the buzzer went off. Clearly, if it was that case, they would have looked at it.
And what high school basketball has video evidence?
There was video evidence. That's how we have the
Mr.
video.
Prosecution, you may not talk during Mr. Beck.
I'm just saying.
Mr. Beck's opportunity here.
The-
This
the
is his final words.
I'm
the
saying,
professionalism of this
were the
courtroom.
refs able to go back
Somebody-
during the
somebody
game
control this.
with that video?
Somebody-
Order
control this.
in the court.
Somebody control this.
Excuse me. Please
Mr.
be
Beck,
respectful.
is that all of your final words
That's
and
all.
thoughts?
That's the final words. Because if I'm going to keep getting interrupted. It's
Okay,
pointless.
thank you. Now it's the time for me to make the final judgment on this call. With the power invested in me, I declare this a hung jury. This will be sent to the Supreme Court to make the final word on this. Due to this, because again, 0.3 seconds left, and this is a high school basketball game. We'll take another look at this call, so I can give my explanation here.
Can I just ask?
So, you may not. This is my time to speak. And this being a high school basketball game in the quarterfinals, there is no official replay. So these officials could not have made a proper call because they had no availability to replay to see if that shot was in or out. So the refs on the court were put in a tough position to make a call there.
A judgment call.
So with exactly a judgment call here between the final of this game. So I'm going to rule that this is a hung jury, and it will head to the Supreme Court, and they can make a final ruling on if it was a good or a bad call. Now we're going to head to our commercial break here. When we get back, we're going to take a look at the new catch rule implemented in the NFL and get some thoughts from the prosecution and the defense and a final judgment from me here on if that rule implemented a good catch or a bad catch in a couple of scenarios. Stay tuned for more on Judgment Calls here on CUTV.
Dylan, what's wrong, man?
I just don't know how my family back home in Buchanan, West Virginia can watch our stuff up here.
They can follow us on Twitter, or they can like us on Facebook.
That's awesome. What about our sports? How can they watch that?
They could watch it live right on our YouTube channel.
Awesome, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you listen.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Enough. Yeah, I'm over it.
We shouldn't need commercials to tell you we're powerful.
No thanks.
Genders don't play sports. Athletes do.
Welcome back to the courtroom here. We'll be moving into our second segment of calls here, but it has been brought to my attention as you were all away that both members of this court have been given official warnings because they have not acted professionally. And consider this your final warning, and if you are to act up again, I will be escorting you out of Mr. Goday's courtroom.
Thank you, Bailiff Colin. We're now on to our third case of the day, and this is the new catch rule implemented in the NFL. This was voted unanimously by the owners on 32 to nothing, actually, on this catch rule, and this will be changing the catch rule back to what it really used to be, where you don't have to complete the catch through the ground. That separated the NFL from college football. You still have to get those 2 feet in bounds, but you do not have to complete the catch through the ground. Now we're going to take a look at some 2 catches here that under this new format. First, Jesse James' catch here last season against the New England Patriots. I have a couple looks here at Jesse James' catch. You see him catch it, go to the ground, and reach that ball out, and that's where they called the catch to be not a catch. And under this new format, they say it will be a new catch. But that's up to the prosecution here. First, Mr. Ruffing, what would you decide under this new rule? Would this catch here by Jesse James be a good catch?
It would be, because he catches that ball, that knee's down, he crosses the plane with motion into it. If I could just catches it, knees down, and he falls into the end zone, and that's a catch. The ball may have bobbled a little bit there, but with the 30 camera shots of the NFL, the way that they have, the technology they have, they basically zoomed in and they noticed that a little piece of grass hit the ball and then it wasn't a catch. But now, that's different. That's a full catch. His knees was down. The plane was crossed. Jesse James, that was a touchdown.
Thank you, prosecution and Mr. Ruffing. Now to the defense. Mr. Beck, what is your stance on this call?
I'm here to say that that was not a catch. I'm going to say that in the last catch rule, they had to make a football move. And in that move, Jesse James was in the process of trying to contort his body to make the catch, which was not, in fact, a football move. You can see here, he had to reach, or he had to push off of his 2 feet to make the move. It was not a football move, a move to complete the catch. Also in this rule, you had to have 2 feet down. Never, in fact, did that. And that is why that is not a catch.
Mr. Ruffing of the prosecution, would you like to make a rebuttal?
Yes,
to
I
Mr.
would.
Beck?
2 feet down, right there. So that's all I have to say. The 2 feet were down.
You rest your
right
case.
There. Right there, the 2 feet were down.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing. Mr. Beck, would you like a rebuttal to Mr. Ruffing?
Yes, can we please replay that again? One more time. I apologize. I'd just like to ask where.
Right there.
Which foot?
Are you looking?
Which foot? Which foot?
Wait, are you looking
Which
at
foot?
Juju?
Which foot?
Both of them. Right there.
Order, Mr. Ruffing.
Right
This
there.
is your final warning
So,
here from the
pause.
judge.
Can I ask you something then?
Please remain orderly.
I don't know.
Prosecution?
I don't know. Can you?
Prosecution.
Is he going to let me answer?
If he was, in fact, in that position, his 2 feet were in the field of play, not in past the goal line.
The ball has to
Before-
cross the plane.
Mr. Ruffing, you may
But
not
his two-
answer Mr. Beck's
His
question.
his 2 feet were
said
in
I can
play.
answer.
It-
He
it's-
said you can't answer.
I said he can. This
Okay.
is his time
Yes.
to,
All right,
to
so we
answer
can
your
this
talk
is your
now.
time to
So we
stop
can talk
talking.
now, though. His 2 feet were in play before the ball
Sir,
hit the ground.
Please,
Mr. Beck,
please,
this
I'm
is-
going to need you to stop and
You're
remain
permitted one
professional.
question, and you're extending this question into utter nonsense.
Yeah,
Mr. Ruffing,
you specifically
you may,
said I
No,
have
I wasn't.
it.
That wasn't a question.
I have
Please
that wasn't a
obey the
question.
rules of Mr. Goday's courtroom.
That wasn't a question. I was
Thank you,
working in
Mr.
it.
Beck. Mr. Ruffing,
I have
you
in
may
my log
respond.
that you said, Stephen Ruffing, can I ask you a question, not questions? There was multiple questions in your statement, so I will answer the one. Yes, his 2 feet were down, and the ball had crossed the plane. There was a football move made as he went like this and then like that. Danny, you're talking yourself into a circle right now, and quite frankly, it's embarrassing.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing. Are those your final words from the prosecution?
Unless Danny Beck has multiple questions to hound me with.
Thank you. Mr. Beck, what's your final word here on this call?
I do, in fact. I guess if I am not asking a question now, so I can get my entire thought through. 2 feet were in bounds. Normally, if your knee is down, which it was, in play, you're down in the field of play. That's always what it was. If you complete the catch in the field of play, you have your knee down and your foot, that is a completed catch. So he's down. He's down there. Not the reach thing. He was down there at the 2-yard line, 1-yard line, whatever it may be, he's down. The rule was never if you reach and, that's not what it was. He's down in the field of play. It's now.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Now, time for my ruling here as judge of the California Court of Opinions. I would like to rule by unanimous decision by the jury. This is a good catch under the new rule implemented by the NFL. I'd like to thank the prosecution and defense for both their stances on this and the heated debate that took place. But as we take one more final look at this play, you can clearly see that Mr. James catches the ball, gets 2 feet down. His knee actually touches the ground as well, stretches the ball over the pylon, where he just has to touch the pylon. Right there, both knees down, and the ball is across the pylon. At that time, the play would be called dead. It will be a touchdown, and the play is over. So I'd like to rule the power invested in me, good catch. Now on to our next example. This is the infamous play from the playoffs between the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. This is a play where Des Bryant appears to catch a ball and stretch for the end zone, similar to as Mr. James. Let's take a look at this play. Des Bryant running down the sideline, catches the ball there, reaches out, the ball appears to bobble out. At the time, this was ruled no catch under further review. But now, officials in the NFL are saying this will be ruled a catch. Time for the prosecution to make their stance. Do you deem this a good catch or bad catch here, no catch?
Well, I have to say it's a catch because I'm the prosecutioner. Because he stretches out, clearly kept that control of that ball. Definitely kept control of the ball. And
again, this is with the new rules. You
Right.
have to control the ball through the
Right.
ground.
Okay, all right.
It's under the new rules, not the old rule format.
All right. So, with the new rules, he has the ball, he catches it, brings it down, and he dives into the end zone. I think it's pretty cut and dry with the new rules. That is, in fact, a catch.
Thank you, prosecution and Mr. Ruffing. Now on to Mr. Beck and the defense. What's your ruling on this catch?
There is no possible way that you can, say that was a catch. There's no way. He didn't have possession of the ball. In the new rule, you said that you have possession of the ball. He was bobbling it the entire way down to the ground. The entire way, in the air, all the way down to the ground. You can see right there, bobbles, he's pinning it, and then it just falls right out. We can see right here if it touches the ground, which it does, it actually drags on the ground for quite some time and pins against his head. No way that you can say that is a catch. And I rest my case. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Now on to some final words here by the prosecution. Mr. Ruffing, what's your ruling on this?
I'm just going to stand with what I've said before. It's crazy how 3 of the 4 videos were completely linked to the judge, but I'm going to let that up for debate. I'm going to stand with what I've said. Danny, I think you were completely wrong and idiotic for thinking that is not
I
a
object.
catch.
I object. Name calling?
That is very
Name
unprofessional.
calling.
No place for
I
name
object.
calling in my
Very,
court.
very
I object.
unprofessional.
My mom taught me
Mr.
better.
Beck, this is my time to offer an objection,
actually
not yours.
actually.
Stay in your lane, Mr. Beck.
I
All right,
object.
so
Now on-
thank you.
Are you
Thank
done,
Your
Mr.
Honor.
Ruffing?
I wasn't. Danny interrupted me.
Okay.
So, to call that a no catch is completely insane. So he brings that in, and you say he drags it on the field. I just don't see where that happens. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps before he even, before he steps foot into the end zone? What, 3, 4, 5 steps? Gets it, jumps, no contact on them whatsoever, and just whoop, glides right in there. His arm was on under the ball, so never hit the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Ruffing. Now on to the defense and Mr. Beck. Mr. Beck, it's your time to give your final thoughts on this call.
I also would like to say that I think it is absolutely preposterous that all of these videos are linked to the judge. I also would like to say that it is clearly not a catch. He literally drugged the ball behind him on the ground. With a string, he drugged the ball with
Objection.
him into
There was
the end
no
zone.
string involved in this catch, Your Honor.
Mr. Ruffing, this is not your place to offer an objection. It is my place to offer an objection.
he said there
here.
was a string.
I'm
There's no string.
not going to give you an objection on that. That is his opinion.
And I believe that it was no catch. I rest my case.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. The power invested in me by the California Court of Opinions, I would like to call this a catch.
Whoa.
And as we take a look at this catch by Mr. Des Bryant, you see Bryant jumps up, catches that ball, 2 feet, hit the ground. As stated in the new rule, he just has to have control of the ball for 2 steps. He does. Elbow hits the ground. The elbow also counts as a step, so you could say it's 5 or 6 steps, as that will right there, that elbow and the control of the ball counts as him being down with the ball in hand. So with the power invested in me, declare that a good catch. And we have now reached the end of our first episode here of Judgment Calls. For next time, you can send in your own calls by officials or even in the entertainment industry. Was it a good move by Miley Cyrus to dye her hair blue? Or anything like that. Whichever you shall choose, we will find a verdict on each of those examples. Thank you to the prosecution for today, Mr. Ruffing. And thank you to the defense for today, Mr. Daniel Beck. Also like to have a big thanks for trying to keep this rowdy crowd in the courtroom under control, the bailiff, Mr. Colin Kirkwood. Thank you for your service and honorable duty to this courtroom. But as for this episode, that's it. Thank you to the crew in the back. Stay tuned for next time, and also send us those videos of calls that you'd like us to discuss here on Judgment Calls. Thanks for tuning in to the first episode of Judgment Calls here on CUTV.